Hello, greetings everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today we are doing an episode of What's New. This comes out every Thursday. Unfortunately, every Thursday I don't do the album I said I was going to do on this week. I keep changing it up. So I think what I'm going to do for this particular show is I'm going to name like 3 albums that I could possibly do, and then I will do one of those 3. So that at least there's some form of consistency here, because I changed my mind once again, and I'm doing a different album that I had set out to do. So for this episode, I've chosen to do a German band, kind of a hard rock. Yeah, definitely hard rock. Definitely have some prog sounds in their music as well. A band called Voyager X, and this is their album Magic. I actually quite like their logo. I've noticed it's on all of their albums, that kind of angle that they put it on and everything. Kind of a decent logo. So the album is called Magic. It was released March the 22nd, 2024. 44 minutes in length, roughly in that time, in that period, on the Dr. Music record label, or records, however you want to call it. So in this band, they're all Germans. They're all featured Mario Gansen on vocals, Stefan Baumgartner on guitars, Christian Mordick on keyboards, George Schreiber on bass, and Peter Werbert on drums. So pretty solid album. I didn't really know quite what I was going to get into. I did look it up a little bit, looked it up online, and that's where I actually listened to it. So I wasn't quite sure. They kind of labeled it as prog rock, but I don't think it is. I think it's got that prog element, no doubt about it, but I think it also has a lot of that hard rock element to their music too. So they're kind of a mixture. This is not uncommon from bands from the 80s either. Have a little bit of all that stuff mixed in. So we're going to get down to the album, a little bit about it. Make sure I got it right here. I do. So basically my overall impression of the album is it's good production. It's a pretty strong production. I think the guitar is quite strong on this album, especially the riffing part, pretty strong. But I think the main, and to me the dominant instrument on here is probably the keyboards. Not that he's any better than the others, but it's just, I just found it, because it's a hard rock album, the keyboards tend to stand out a little more. He does some pretty good solos, not a ton of them. I don't think it's not a band with that formula where they riff and they sing a couple of choruses, and then somebody does a guitar solo, and then they do another chorus or two, and then they end the song. It's not like that at all. This is kind of more proggy with little bits of elements of that in it, where the music doesn't quite stay the same. Some of the songs it does, but a lot of the time it may start out quiet, go heavier, and then go quiet again, or all kinds of different variations. It's not really something that I didn't get a feel like I do with some bands, where about halfway through the album I kind of know what's going to be coming next, because all the stuff that's come before it has been the same pretty much. This, I didn't get that at all. So also the bass player is pretty predominant. You can hear him. He's quite good, as well as is the drummer, who I think is pretty frontal too. All 4 of the musicians on here are quite strong. Vocalist is a little different than I had expected. He has a kind of a high, squeaky voice almost. I did refer to it as screechy, but I don't actually think that is an appropriate term to use on his voice. I think it's more like, as he gets higher, his voice tends to stretch a little bit, and you get a little bit of that squeakiness in his voice. It's not dominating, and it's not distracting in any way or shape or form, but you can hear it overlaying some of the stuff that he sings. So anyways, a little bit about the tracks now. We'll talk about them. So there are 9 tracks on this. Most of them I gave, I think the range was somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6.5. I didn't even actually rate the last 2 songs, but based on what I remember about them, they both would have been in the 6th range too. So the opening track, this was the first track I had actually ever heard from this band, so Um, I did a little bit more notes on it than I normally do. That's normally what I do. I start out with lots of notes, and then as it gets repetitious, I may just mention it, So you got, it's got kind of a synthesizer opening, nothing dominating, but that it's just, that's the way it is. And then you got these kind of high-end vocals that are kind of clear, but a bit on the squeaky or screechy side, if you prefer. Lots of heavy guitar riffing. Yeah, it's a bit of a high energy song, I think. I almost get this on this first track. I kind of got that feel that they were similar in some ways to Saga. They have that feel about their music. It's got that Saga feel where it's heavy and a proggy kind of sound to it, but it's cut. If you know what I'm saying, it's cut. What it means that when they're doing notes, they're kind of sharp, as opposed to just smoothly flowing along. It's kind of a sharpness to their music. That's how I feel about Saga, and this band has a little bit of that going on. The second song, Hypnotize You, sorry. Kind of a heavy guitar bass riff at the onset of this song. Another bit of that high screechy kind of voice. I don't like to use the word screechy because that sounds hard on the ears, but it's got that kind of squeaky sound at the top of it. Heavy riffing, lots of keyboards. The thing about the keyboards, even though they're going on throughout this whole track, they're kind of in the background a bit, so they're kind of giving that atmosphere, keeping the songs sounding so that there's no blank spots at all. Yeah, I found them catchy, and this is kind of an aggressive song too, and actually probably of all the tracks on this album, I would say this is probably my favorite. If I had to choose one, this would be the one. Next out is a song called Magic, which is the title track, of course. Opens with some nice keyboard and guitar dominated parts. Then some catchy Saga-like sounds going on here again. Yeah, it's got a bit of a little bit more of a symphonic background to this particular track than some of the others. And the vocals, once again, are a little bit in that squeaky, gruff sounding part as he screams more, or his voice gets more dominating. It starts to stretch a bit, I find. The next track, which is one of the longest, if not the longest track on the album, You Crossed My Way. This is a kind of a different song from them at this point in time. So they've had three kind of heavier songs with lots of instrumentation and riffing and stuff. This track is a little more solemn. Got that kind of a piano opening with the synthesizer background to kind of create this kind of more solemn effect that I think that's what they're trying to create here. Vocals are strong, but maybe a little bit deeper than the other tracks at this point. Then it gets a little bit more up-tempo, a little more melodic at around the 2.5 minute mark of this song. It starts getting a little bit more melodic. Not as fast-paced as some of the other tracks either. I didn't care for this one as much as the first three tracks. I'm not one for heavy metal bands or hard rock bands doing these kind of ballady type things. I'm not really big on that. The next song is called I Recognize You. This has a mostly, it's got that Saga sound again, but this is a more of an 80s sound. It definitely has an 80s feel to it. This song would fit right on any of those albums. The beat is a bit choppy, kind of, and the guitar and the keyboards are a little on the choppy side as well. Vocals are higher at points, but also scratchy, like I said before. And some nice fast-paced soloing here towards the middle end of the album, but they're cut. If you know what I mean by cut, that they're not flowing, they're not like melodic like you would get with Pink Floyd, where it's just kind of drifting in and out, or even with Yes, where you get the kind of slow melodic kind of. This stuff is very cut. It's sharp, I guess another term you might want to use for it. The next song is called Don't Lose the Pa. A bit more of a laid back keyboard sound going on here. Guitars, especially the solo, kind of I think fits in that Dire Straits sound. That's what it reminds me of. And when I say reminds me of stuff, or gives me a hint of it, basically what that means is that when I'm listening to it, that's what comes into my head, is that band or that sound. So I'm not saying that it necessarily sounds like that. That's just what it reminds me of. So it gives me a bit of a hint of that. I guess that's a better way of putting it. And it builds up and gets a little bit heavier towards the back end of the song. But it also has a bit of a pop feel to it as well, this track. Come On, Live Your Dreams Together. This is the next track. This is the shortest song on the album, I believe. It's a bit more fast-paced. Another kind of 80-ish style guitar riff going on here. The vocals are similar to most of the other tracks. There's nothing really abnormal there. The solo is strong, but definitely has a kind of a little bit of a new wave-ish kind of majestic sound to it. And then you have there's a couple of parts, and I was trying to explain this. So there's a couple of parts in the song where you get that kind of a growling voice. It's a background voice. It's not him singing. It's somebody else doing the growl. It's almost like something you would get on a death metal kind of growl, but kind of not really a growl, more like a squeak. It's weaker. It's not as strong. It's not as prevalent. It's not last as long either, but it definitely can hear that kind of a growl part going on this particular track. I think there's only a couple tracks like that on the whole album. This was the first of the two like that. Walk on the Deadline. Keyboards are solemn here. Vocals are in a lower range, almost not as scratchy either. Man, they're deeper. The voice is deeper. He's not stretching himself to get those high notes. It does have an upbeat kind of poppy sound towards the back end. Both the keyboards solo and the well, not just the one keyboard. There's like two of them actually here on this track. So you got these two solos kind of going at the same time. They're a little bit different, but it's like a twin soloing, like a twin keyboard soloing going on towards this part of the album. Gives the song a bit of a different flavor, I think. And then you have the last song on the album, Crime of the Century. No coincidence that it's related to Supertramp or anything like that. Nice heavy guitar riff here. It doesn't really sound anything like that either. You got some keyboards contrasting and giving that kind of symphonic background here. And then you've got a keyboard solo, which is good, and accompanied with this guitar riff. So it's a nice marriage, is what it is. So you've got the guy doing a solo, and the other guy in the back is kind of doing this guitar riff, which really fits in with the song quite a bit. There's a little bit of this whistling going on, and then a narrative where somebody's actually talking and saying something. This is why I think this band, despite the fact that they're considered a hard rock band, definitely have a lot of that kind of prog stuff that you would see in a prog album. And then you have the absolutely top shelf guitar solo here, one of the best on the album, I think. Really well done. And so overall, I find this album to be a hard rock, kind of bordering on metal at points in time, with a strong progressive rock sound to their music. The voice is very kind of high end, like you would get from a metal guy, but there's also that saga element going on throughout their music as well. And they pretty much are up tempo most of the time, although they do have their melodic moments as well. So overall, I thought it was a good album. I think it's an album that I would like to listen to again. I like to listen to some more of their stuff. They do have some background albums that I haven't listened to. I like to hear if they're the same as this, or maybe because they're a little bit of a time ago, they don't sound as much like this. I don't know. I guess I will have to find out. Anyways, I hope you've liked this episode. If you have, please hit the like and subscribe. Don't forget to put your comments about the album, the album or the group or any of the members or anything that you've heard that you want to make a comment about. You could do that as well. And don't forget to hit the notification bell, and we will see you next week on What's New. Take care and goodbye.